Hi, this is Al Snow, WWE Superstar, host of Sunday Night Heat and the $1 Million Tough Enough, and you're listening to the Interactive Interview.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Here on the Interactive Interview, live on the Blaze 1260 AM, we have the pleasure of having Al Snow with us, as well as Joel. They're doing an upcoming movie together. Guys, pleasure to have you on the show.
How's it going?
It's good to have you.
Hey, it's our pleasure.
Absolutely.
So let's start out with you, Al. How have you been in the past times? You doing all right?
Doing very good. Been keeping very, very busy, wrestling and running the developmental league for WWE, and then getting involved with Joel in this great movie that he's produced. And unfortunately, due to my schedule, I was only able to get out there and just do a little cameo, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to getting to see the whole thing once it's put all the way together.
Now, that movie is entitled The Still Life, and that'll be out in September of 2005. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the part that you played in the film?
Well, I was supposed to have a part as a bodyguard, but due to time constraints, like I mentioned earlier, I couldn't do it. So Joe was nice enough to give me a cameo where myself and other people, such as, I guess, Martin Luther King's daughter and numerous other celebrities, more than I can remember, were gazing at a painting that an artist in the movie, the main artist, had done. And we give our ideas and statements about the painting and decide that we're going to buy it.
And I understand that your famous head is involved in this shot as well, correct?
Oh, of course. I mean, let's face it. Everybody loves head, and of course, and it's not the first time that head's not made. It's not the first time that head's made a cinematic debut. In fact, they have a whole industry based on that.
They do, in fact, right? I believe it's called pornography.
That could be. Yeah, but it's nothing pornographic in that regard. So, because if it were pornographic, yeah, it's not that kind of film. If it were pornographic, it'd be kind of perverted. So,
Joe, while we have you on the phone, why don't you give us a little bit of more background about the movie itself, The Still Life?
The film's about a guy who paints a painting and he destroys it and then passes out drunk. And the next day, the art critic comes and really likes the destroyed painting. And so together, they create a new art movement, and they call it destructionism. But the guy finds it very difficult to put all of his creativity into his product, knowing that he has to destroy it to find critical acclaim. And it becomes really popular, and it hurts him as an individual. It's very, very difficult for him to continue to push on with this, really, because it's a self-deprecating art form.
Now, along with Al Snow, what are some other names we can expect to see in this film?
There's a lot of different rock stars. We got Jonathan Davis from Korn in it, Josh Todd from Buck Cherry, Dizzy from Guns N' Roses.
Wow.
Yolanda King is Martin Luther King's daughter. She's also an art buyer, as Al said. We got Dean Denning from Toad the Wet Sprocket, Angelo from Fishbone, Louise Post from Veruca Salt, Kim Shattuck from The Muffs. We had a lot of different people in the film. It was really exciting.
Got a who's who of rock and roll there.
Oh, we got Kato Kalin in the film, even.
No kidding.
Yeah, and
he was living in the guest house.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, he's a photographer. He's looking from somebody else's house, and you never know which house he was looking from. And then our leads are Jason Berry, who was in Titanic, Rachel Miner, who was in Bully, and we have this lady named Terry Moore. And Terry Moore is an old Hollywood legend, which was really exciting and very, very cool.
How are you going to release this? Is this going to be like a video release, or is this going to be in independent theaters?
Right now, we're putting it up to send to Sundance, and we're going to see what happens. But we're going to hit up Sundance first, and then we'll take things as they come. So I've been approached by a couple of distribution people already, but I want to wait until we're done. We're still in editing, so it's good. But yeah, we definitely got the head scene in there for you guys. It was pretty cool too. It was a neat scene.
Excellent. So Al, we know we got the ECW pay-per-view coming up. Are you going, in fact, to be a part of this ECW pay-per-view, which I heard you are going to be, but let's just have you confirm that for us.
Yes, I'm definitely going to be a part of it. To what degree or what, in what form, I don't know yet. Initially, I was slated to perform in the ring, but right now I've gotten word that there might be a possibility that, I might commentate. So I'm hoping that I get to perform in the ring. I'd much rather do that. I think the ECW pay-per-view is going to be a very emotional night. for everybody. I think it's going to be a big moment in wrestling history. I think that it's probably going to do an incredible buy rate, and I'm hoping that we really honor the spirit of ECW and the fans that made it.
Do you think you could do that? Do you think you can recreate that, what I call the rebel atmosphere that ECW was?
Yeah, because all the people that are on the pay-per-view are still those same guys that have that same attitude. And, we made ECW. We the performers and the fans together, we made ECW. I mean, they can say what they want about Paul. Paul had a vision and a direction, which was good, but Paulie allowed us, the performers, and allowed the audience, the two of us together, to, create something that was very special. And, we went out there and we put our hearts and souls into it because we knew that we had an opportunity to make it ours, and nobody was going to tell us not how to do it or how not to do it. It was up to us to do it. It was our responsibility and our baby. And I think when we go out there June 12th, it's not just a matter of having a pay-per-view for us. It's a matter of showing everybody that, hey, whether or not, the business went under, it wasn't because of our lack of passion and our lack of heart, or the lack of the fans' interest. It's because it was just, bad business practices and poor management.
I'd have to agree with that. Of course, many of us have seen the rise and fall of ECW. I was an ECW fan. I lived in New Jersey. I went to the ECW arena many times. I was pretty impressed with the rise and fall of ECW, the way it came together. But I've talked to a couple of people that said that they thought it might have been a little bit ginger towards the way it happened, a little bit gentle towards maybe the way that it really went down. Do you feel that the ECW, rise and fall of ECW release accomplished capturing the spirit and the story of ECW?
To a degree, I think it did. I think if it didn't, it wouldn't have sold as well as it, and continue to sell as well as it has. No matter what it is, when you do some kind of documentary or whatever in regards to a situation, you're never ever going to completely recapture the true essence of the subject matter that you're covering.
Right.
All you can try to do is do as much justice as possible. And, give credit where credit is due. This is a wrestling company, WWE, who's putting out a DVD about an opposing wrestling company, and they stayed pretty close to actual events and, didn't try to put too much of a spin on things.
No, and definitely they were much more honest in this one than they have been about Nitro in the past and WCW's success or lack thereof. Yeah, I definitely would agree with that.
Do you feel as though the ECW brand ever has a chance to kind of revive itself in a more continuous fashion, something we may see take over a Velocity show or maybe a Heat kind of show where we can actually get it back for maybe an hour or two?
I don't know. Good Lord only knows. I mean, everything in this business works on, and just like the film business and the entertainment business, being in the right place at the right time with the right gimmick, with the right mix of people that can make that emotional connection with the audience. No matter whether you make a film or you perform as a musician or you perform as a wrestler, it's all about making that emotional connection with your audience to where, because that's all any of us ever remember is emotion. We don't remember, actual events. We remember the emotion attached to the event, and then, of course, the event takes on a whole new color, which allows it, maintain in the front of our memory, and forces us to keep coming back for that same emotional connection over and over again. And I think there's definitely an audience out there that, is the situation the same? Are the performers as driven as they were back in the heyday? I don't know. I really don't know. And only time will tell as far as that's concerned. I mean, it's very possible. I mean, if I were a part of it, I would still feel like I had something to prove and would be very driven to do so. So I think a lot of other guys feel like they were at the cusp of making ECW into something and then fell short. And some of them might be, just disappointed and not willing to push as hard as they did the last time for fear of being disappointed again, and others might be even more driven to just go even crazier.
Do you think the fact that this is under the WWE banner will affect maybe what you're talking about? Maybe they will not work as hard because they're not in competition with the big guys. They're not the little dogs.
They still are. I think you're going to see a lot of guys go out there and have that screw you mentality, like, you may own us, but you don't. You may own the name, but you don't own us. Type of thing.
Paul Heyman had
they're going to do some stuff to just drive that point home a little bit.
Paul Heyman had the greatest line in the Beyond the Mat video. He said, I believe it was, F you, you're right. F you, you're wrong. F you, I'm right. I think that's pretty much the description of what ECW stood for.
Pretty much. I mean, it was all about us saying, screw you. It was all a bunch of wrestlers that couldn't find a home anywhere else, and we're never allowed to, think about it, Benoit, Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, Tommy Dreamer, Shane Douglas, Sandman. I mean, you can go down a list of guys that either Stone Cold, the guys that were never given an opportunity and were very frustrated and were, and they had a chip on their shoulder. Everybody, we were the island of misfit toys, and we wanted to prove that the island of misfit toys were, we were worth something. We were the ones that were in the right, and everybody else was in the wrong. And I think come June 12th, I think that same attitude's going to be there. I think those guys are going to go out there and, like I said, it's WWE owns the name, but they don't know us.
Absolutely, and it's ECW where you found head and ultimately kicked off what I would consider your more successful runs of your career.
Due to the grace of God, I found head. I got head in ECW, and if I had not gotten head, then we would not be having this conversation today, and I wouldn't have been able to go and do a cameo appearance in a movie for Joel.
Absolutely.
So, for anybody out there, if your career is starting to go down the tubes like mine was, you need a little pick-me-up, I'd suggest get yourself some head. So,
definitely echo those sentiments, I'll tell you what. But why don't we switch gears if we can here a little bit? We'd like to ask you some questions regarding the Tough Enough series. Do you think the WWE is doing it justice since it's been taken off MTV and it's now been placed on SmackDown, where it can't devote as much time to the people that are being trained and yourself training them?
Right. Unfortunately, circumstances dictate that it's on SmackDown for right now, and I don't think it's. I think it's missing some of the things, some of the stuff that it had on MTV, and but I think it's a good compromise, and it's better than not having anything at all.
Right.
I just wish that it was featured a little bit more on its own show, because it was critically acclaimed, it was successful, and it was a great vehicle to create more respect and interest in and also create a new audience for the wrestling business.
As you talked about emotion before, watching the show on MTV, you got a little bit more of an emotional connection between yourself as well as the wrestlers, watching them kind of grow, watching you give them some tough love, but yet at the same time you still have your moments of comedy. I can think of various examples of this, and I think that's something that's now missing, that I personally would like to see come back.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that this is an adequate way to train some people to step into the WWE? I know we have Johnny Nitro, if I'm not mistaken, was a tough enough competitor, John Hennigan, and he actually seemed to find some success. But there's been some others, on the other hand, who have been a little slow to progress.
Sure, and that's going to be the case. This is a business where it's very individualistic, and guys are going to progress at different rates. And and again, you could be the most talented individual in the world. I mean, Johnny Nitro is just an amazing physical specimen. But it's just simply got to be in the right thing, right place, right time. Got to feel it to where he can make that connection with the audience and make it really work. I mean, look at Steve Austin. What an incredible performer he is. And did he just overnight suddenly the success that he is?
No, it took him 7 years.
Exactly. And I spent 13 years in anonymity, and then went to WWF, and then to quit, and was put in loan to ECW,
right.
And then finally, after 16 years, found the right thing, found the success.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has their niche. It's just a matter of knowing what it is and connecting with it. I mean, even Hulk Hogan started in '78. It was only '74. It was only '84 when he really boomed.
He was working longer than 78. He'd been working for quite a few years as the Boulders, you know, he and Ed Leslie, as the Boulder Brothers, and then they finally, you know, Hogan finally started clicking when he went to AWA in Verngagne.
Yep, and then Vince saw him and brought him in, and the rest was history.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who in your opinion, can we expect to be the next Tough Enough breakout?
You know, I'm really looking to Matt Capitelli, other than, you know, Johnny Nitro, of course, but I think that Matt Capitelli is and Maven. I think that Maven still has a tremendous amount of promise and an untapped talent and charisma that they have not yet taken advantage of. But I think it's just, you know, it's a matter of, again, time, finding the right time for Maven, and him just, you know, learning and waiting, and then when the right time hits, well, I think he's going to be a big star.
Now, there was an episode of The Tough Enough with Matt Capitelli and Bob Holly, where Bob Holly roughed him up quite a bit. What was it like being there witnessing that happen?
It was really hard because I was very upset with Bob for doing it, you know, at the time. But I couldn't step in, because if I did, it could, you know, it's like you gotta let somebody fight their own battles to a certain extent, especially when it's a one-on-one situation. And, you know, by stepping in and, you know, playing daddy, then, you know, he loses, you know, if Matt's going to pursue this as a career, he loses a tremendous amount of respect, where the way he handled things and thereafter, he earned a tremendous amount of respect and therefore a boost up in the business. Where if I had stepped in, and, you know, I could have possibly cut his nose off to spite his face.
So you feel by him not really taking any retaliatory action, he was doing the right thing?
No, it wasn't that. He was caught off guard, and I think he was shocked and stunned, and I don't think he would have taken any retaliatory action even if he could have. You know, I don't think he could have at the time because he was completely knocked loopy. But after, and his head cleared, he handled things by the right way, because he went up and, you know, shook his hand, looked him in the eye, and let's face it, there are going to be people throughout your whole life they're going to basically beat your ass. But the only time they win is when you let them know that they've done it. And, you know, he did not put it over. He didn't sell it. And he basically, you know, made it clear that, yeah, you might have beat me up, but you didn't beat me. You didn't win. And that was the way to handle it, because I told him, not just in wrestling, but throughout your whole life, people are going to take advantage of your trust. Now, they may not punch you in the eye, but they'll stab you in the back. And if you sell it and go crying and whining around, then they've won, because you basically let them know that they've beat your ass.
Absolutely.
If you don't let them know they've beat your ass, then they never, you know, regardless of whether they have or not, they've not actually won.
You mentioned Maven, and Maven is on camera now teaming up with Simon Dean, formerly known as Nova. Going back to ECW, I'm wondering how they're going to pull that off. How are they going to have Simon Dean come out and be Nova again? I mean, I think that he's going to be in that world or that aspect, he's going to be Nova. That's
that night.
I'm very interested to see how they're going to pull that off. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a tremendous talent. So I'm hoping that they can do something with him to show that, hey, I'm more than just a goofy character. You know, the WWE.
I think it's the chance for him that night to show that he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm expecting out of this pay-per-view myself, is that this is a chance for a lot of underutilized wrestlers to really have the spotlight to themselves on a major pay-per-view level and be able to show really what they can do inside the ring.
Which is exactly what ECW was all about from the beginning. Those guys that were shunned or never given an opportunity or a chance or were underutilized people throughout the rest of the wrestling business, that once they were brought to ECW knew that that was their chance and their opportunity and their place to do what they wanted to do. Guess what? That pay-per-view is going to be that night.
I think
exactly the same.
I think it really will do a good buy rate like we discussed. I just think, first of all, I think ECW got a boom from the release that Rise and Fall of ECW. That got a boom in fans' minds, and fans, you know, are very curious about it because a lot of them weren't really aware of it at the time. I mean, their ratings were good, but they weren't huge.
Yeah,
and I think now
they weren't quite as aware as what everybody thinks they were.
Yeah, so now people are really curious. So
yeah, and I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised. because there are a lot of people out there that are looking for something a little different. You know, and that was how ECW got started at the time. The big two, WCW and WWF, or WWE, at the time were offering a certain style.
Right.
And ECW was offering a completely different style. And one thing I want to point out, that a lot of people use this word and they don't really understand what it is or what it's about, but it's passion. Passion drives everything. And if you don't have it, then it's never going to amount. Whatever it is, the project, the job, is never going to amount to be what it could possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys in ECW, like I stated before, were shunned and pushed away. They had such a passion for the business that ECW was that outlet for that passion.
Mm-hmm.
And it manifested itself in the audience. The audience could see it and could feel it every time one of those guys went out there and performed.
I mean, there's never been a promotion in the history of wrestling that had fans that chanted the letters of the company with so much passion that their chest swells up and their faces turn red. I mean, that's what ECW fans were.
And that was because Paulie, to his credit, never insulted his audience's intelligence, always assumed that they were smart, not smart to the business, but intelligent smart.
Right.
Had an IQ, and that he was not going to be, because they were too sophisticated. The level of the audience, the level of sophistication these days is so much higher that you can't lie to them, because we're in an information age.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you lie to them, they're going to go out and find that information and realize you lied to them. What's the last thing anybody wants to have happen to them? To be lied to. So, that, I think, made them feel like they were a part of it and a part of its success, and drove them to be almost cult-like in their appreciation for, the promotion.
And plus, like you said, it was totally rebellious in '95, because, I mean, when you had the options of companies, you had WCW, which had the cartoonish Dungeon of Doom against Hulkamania, and then WWF had the pirate stealing Bret Hart's jacket. So, I mean, it was pretty silly, and ECW was the first company to have attitude, before attitude was cool.
And I'll tell you what, we're going to, on June 12th, you'll see that attitude again.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of those guys will want to go out there and show they've still got it.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about how fans today are so much more intelligent, and there's so much more information. How do you feel the internet has either helped or hurt the wrestling industry as a whole?
I think that it's done both, because I think that it's hurt by the fact that people give it too much credit, because really Mr. and Mrs. Walmart are where the largest amount of money is to be made, and they don't have a ton of internet access. It's not as proliferate as what people think it is. But it's helped in the dissemination of information and allowing people to not only understand the product, but relate to it better, and then appreciate and have more respect for it.
You mentioned Walmart. There was an incident where they pulled your doll out of the toy aisle because they thought it was a severed head. You have any comment about that?
I'll briefly state this because I got to get going, but and I apologize, I have to cut it short. But
not a problem. We were just about done.
That is a statement about this whole country, because unfortunately this country has become a society of victims, and the minority, and we believe that majority rules, but really it doesn't anymore. Minority rules. Two women who were associate professors, they were professors of communications at a college in Georgia, went to Walmart, saw the doll, saw a picture of me holding the mannequin head, saw the doll with a Barbie doll head in the package, made assumptions without doing proper homework about my character, then and assumed that the head was a female, which I'd never ever referred to it as a female or a male. I referred to it as a they, never as a he or a she. Then started to make their opinions known in a public forum by writing a letter to the Atlanta Constitution about the fact that they thought, because based on their assumptions and not any homework, again, professors of communications at a college that should know better, that it was, I quote, a training manual for future spousal abusers. And that by children buying my action figure would then, of course, go out and cut off the heads of their wives and daughters. So Walmart, of course, gets wind of this and immediately panics and pulls all the dolls from the shelves. Now, granted, you could still buy a shotgun and live ammo at Walmart. And the very next week after they pulled my doll, the Sleepy Hollow dolls were in there with actually two severed heads that had bloody stumps. if I remember correctly, my history, that was how things such as the Salem witch trials were started, where people expounded their opinions based on simply supposition and assumption in a public forum, and then created basically a terror, and people died from it. And and it was the same thing. Two women who were professors of communications at college. Now, keep in mind, they're teaching children, young adults, how to go about communicating without doing any homework whatsoever on my character. Took their assumptions and proclaimed them in a public forum, so that then it created a big publicity stir. So,
well, if we can just ask you one more question before we wrap up here. We always hear this great kind of rivalry that you and Mick Foley have. Obviously, we've read Mick Foley's book. He takes quite a few shots at you. At this time, we want to give you a forum to take a shot back at Mick Foley. He was recently at a benefit show where you and D'Lo Brown were at, and I heard he took some shots at you then, too. So we're going to give you the opportunity to back on Mick Foley.
I don't take shots at Mick. All I can say about Mick's book is he's a very talented writer, but if he had not taken the time to take shots at me throughout the book, Mick's life story would much be like his penis, and it would be a short one. So,
we're going to have to get Mick on now. All right, we thank you so much for your time today, and we hope you have much success with this movie. Would you like to give it one more plug?
Yes, it'll be out in fall of 2005. It's called The Still Life. I get to make a cameo in the movie. It's a really great story, and I think people are going to really enjoy it. So I hope that they come out, give it a chance, take a look at it, and I think you're going to find it to be a lot of fun.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for more from the Interactive
Interview.
Interview.
And Joel, if you're still there, we thank you for your time as well.
I'm here, and I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
And we wish you both the best of luck in your upcoming endeavors, the ECW pay-per-view and the film.
Well, thank you guys very much.
Hey, thank you guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Enjoying what you're hearing? Be sure and check out WrestlingEpicenter.com on social media at Facebook.com/WrestlingEpicenter, on Twitter at James Epicenter, and of course, WrestlingEpicenter.com for 24-hour news updates, our interview archives, and all the other information you've come to expect from the Wrestling Epicenter.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of the Interactive Interview on WrestlingEpicenter.com. Of course, we are not live this week. We had a little bit of problems, but we will return live May 31st on KASC, the Blaze 1260 AM, with our new website launch. You will be able to listen live on the broadcast. But before we get to that, I want to inform you that in this edition of the Interactive Interview, we will be joined by the one and only Al Snow. But right now, we're being joined by two other guests. Hosts, I should say. We have Chuck Elstein. Chuck D. And we also have Eric Clancy.
Eric G, man.
Wouldn't it be Eric C?
Well, Chuck doesn't have the initial of his last name there.
All right, gotcha. I got you, dog.
So for tonight, I'm Eric G.
All right.
In tribute to Chuck D.
Well, my initials spell out Jew, so everybody just call me Jew. Okay? All right, guys, so Monday night was Monday Night Raw, which is a good place for it, as I'm always prone to say. So, overall, what do you guys give the show?
I give it a thumbs up.
Thumbs up?
I have yet to watch the show in its entirety, but from what I saw, I'll give it a mixed reaction.
I will personally say that I think this was one of the better Raws I've seen in a couple months. I thought it was pretty action-packed. I think it was pretty concise on who the heels and faces were, which is so necessary. That was my biggest complaint about, well, one of my many complaints about the Attitude Era was that the faces and heels tend to run together. Now you're starting to get back to where you can actually tell who the heels and faces are. Unfortunately, we did see a couple things towards the end that I did not care for, but we will get there in a few moments.
Well, let's start out with the start of the show.
Yes, sir.
This obviously emanated from the Research Center in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it started off with some footage of Lita and Edge turning on Kane.
The name of the arena is the Research Center?
That's correct. So we had Lita and Edge come out to the ring first to address the issue as to why they screwed Kane.
After the show, did they perform an autopsy on a pig?
So Raw kicked off from the Research Center in Green Bay, Wisconsin. We showed a clip, or they showed a clip, of Lita and Edge turning in, screwing Kane, if you will. We were then joined by Lita and Edge in the ring to give an explanation as to why they screwed Kane. This was in a very emotional segment, as the whole Matt Hardy, Lita, Edge triangle has played out over the past few months. What did you guys feel of this segment?
Sorry, my modem, which, whatever the company is, D-Link, thank you for your router, because it kicks me off every 8 seconds. Screw you guys. But go ahead.
Excellent, and once again, screw you to Kirk White, who might be listening to this program. Also, just wanted to say that I thought this was a great segment. It's unfortunate, really, for Matt Hardy's sake, and I do feel sorry for Matt when I watch this, when Lita's saying things such as, no man has been able to satisfy me, and that I've been cheating on you behind your back for the past several months, and yada, yada, yada. That whole thing, I mean, obviously was taking a real-life situation and turning it into an angle. The unfortunate thing is, I'm not sure there was any alternative.
Well, this was the first time where I actually thought it was believable that they were both heels. I've been critical in the past of turning this into an angle, but I now agree it's the only choice they had. For the first time, I actually felt passionate about an angle. So I think it was a necessary move.
It's a dangerous precedent to set, but as long as this is a unique chance. For example, this is not the first time we've seen a real-life incident turn into an angle. The Bret Hart incident turned into an angle by turning Vince heel. And Vince became one of the biggest heels in the history of the business. So it works, but it's a dangerous precedent to set because you don't want these guys writing their own angles backstage.
Well, I don't think this was an angle that was written backstage. It was never meant to get out of the backstage. But since it did, like I said, it made people passionate about what they were seeing, whether for better or for worse. This has really solidified Edge and Lita as both heels. There's no way they're going to get any kind of face pops. There's going to be no confusion between whether or not they're face or heel. They are heel through and through at this point in time.
No face pops, huh?
Not one.
You just wait until we're at Raw on June 20th.
I don't think you're going to see any, dude.
Why?
Well, because they're solidified themselves as heels. People are passionate.
Well, you're forgetting that you and I will be at Raw on June 20th from the America West Arena. And there's one thing that James is going to do. He's going to cheer Lita and Edge.
Which I find highly amusing is the fact that you say there should be a clearly defined line, and you didn't like the characters in the Attitude Era, but yet you're willing to cheer the heels and boo the faces.
No, I didn't say I was going to do that with everybody, but I do want to cheer Edge.
Nevertheless, you're contradicting yourself greatly. Therefore,
what can I say? Chuck's got me.
I do.
He's got me.
Let's move on to the second segment of Raw. We saw Eric Bischoff in the back. This was a segment. He was talking about the funeral that will take place, or the burial, if you will, of ECW. This obviously led to Shelton come in. Shelton was like, well, Chris Jericho's not here. I have a match. And this led to the next match of the evening, which was Shelton Benjamin in a handicap match since Chris Jericho was absent, versus Daivari and Hassan, in which Daivari and Hassan got the win. Wasn't one of my favorite matches of the evening. There's nothing really negative I have to say about it. It just kind of felt like a filler match.
It did feel like a filler match, but I'll tell you what, if they keep going this route and keep having Hassan defeat the Intercontinental Champion, they better give him that belt.
I think he's going to get it.
He deserves to get it, and it'd be great for him because he's not really been defeated, and if he can claim he's the undefeated Intercontinental Champion, when he, A, loses, and B, loses the Intercontinental title, which will happen in the same match, obviously, it's going to be pretty big.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, I think he's the only worthy guy that can really take the Intercontinental title at this point. There's not a lot of guys at that level, and I think Hassan would be a good choice for an Intercontinental Champion. I think by at least SummerSlam we'll see him have it.
I hope so. And hopefully they'll breathe a little life into their secondary belt.
Yeah.
Well, up next we had Jericho arriving to the building after his match was scheduled. Todd Grisham interviews him. Jericho says he had other things to do for Fozzy, for VH1. Looks like they're setting up a Jericho heel turn here. Jericho goes on to say that he'll be willing to partake in a match of Eric Bischoff's choosing tonight to make it up to the fans for being late. I thought it was a pretty good segment. I think this cocky, I don't really care about the business Jericho could end up catching on.
I think it might. But he has to get away from Shelton, for crying out loud. This is ridiculous. He's stuck at some level that he can't seem to break free of. In order for him to get to the next level with the heel character, he's got to be at least put in there with somebody above Shelton.
I would agree, and I think he may move to SmackDown. He may not. I think a move to SmackDown could be a good way to get this heel turn going. There's some faces there he could face. Obviously, John Cena being one of them.
The only thing is, though, there's only so many pay-per-views in a year and so many possible feuds. I mean, we've discussed about 6 people that we'd like to see Cena feud with.
Yeah, you can't put everyone over on SmackDown. We got apparently Christian going over there. So if you want to give Christian that heel push to the top, you can't do with Jericho at the same time.
Right. Well, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, it's going to be interesting because they're going to play it out for a month, which is actually a very compelling thing because it'll make me want to watch it every week. So that's good. Going back to the show, what happened next, Mr. Chuck?
Well, we had
tell me a story.
A little bit of segments here with our man Christian with Tyson Tomko. They were looking at SmackDown magazine. He was commenting on the show needs him. Calls John Cena a poser. Asks who Mark Jindrak is, which is relatively funny.
I like that. I like that.
That was funny.
And then after that, we have Edge kind of burst in on Christian and Tomko's little segment where they're discussing who Christian could beat over on SmackDown. Edge says, he has his money in the bank. If he gets the title tonight, he may give Christian the contract for a future title shot if Christian can help him beat Batista. And it looks like there may be a screw job in play, which leads us to our next match, which was the returning Steven Richard going up against Chris Masters, and what was, essentially a squash. There was a little bit of offense from Steven Richard, which in turn was no-sold by Chris Masters, and Chris Masters picked up the win via the Master Lock.
Quite frankly, he shouldn't sell to him.
Well, I think you got to get back to the point of we got to get this Master Lock Challenge back on the road, and the big question is who's the guy who's going to break it. Obviously, it's going to happen in the next few weeks, so you can build up to probably a SummerSlam match between Masters and this newcomer. And
I think they have to start building him up levels-wise. Unfortunately, I think that means you're going to job Jericho out to him.
Well, no, I don't think you need to. If he keeps doing this thing to the local jobbers, and somebody comes out and they just have the guy break it, I think that'd be sufficient enough.
Yeah, I don't think he necessarily has to be a top-tier guy.
I'm not sure. Quite frankly, I'm not sure Jericho qualifies as a top-tier guy at this point.
Well, I think there's a lot of other people that he could still beat within the WWE. The William Regals, the Tajiris of the Raw roster, I think would be, good stepping stones for him.
That might even be better. William Regal might be good.
Some notable wins over some, relatively known.
Who are the tag champs?
Right.
No, seriously, who are the tag champs?
The tag
champions
Hurricane and Rosie. Hurricane and Rosie.
Okay, good. It's a good thing I know that because I watch the show every week. They should have had them defend the belts this week instead of having 10 minutes of Kane rocking back and forth.
Yeah, that was, in fact, my comment.
Yes, and I agree with you. That's one of the few things that I thought was a little weak on this show. But why don't we talk about? Did we talk about the segment with Bischoff, Heyman, and McMahon yet?
No, we're not up to that. We're not to that point yet. Actually, the next match that was on Raw was the Chris Jericho versus Sylvain Grenier, in which Chris Jericho picked up the win via the Walls of Jericho.
It doesn't seem to do anything for anybody, really.
Well, it continues the streak that we have now gotten to know that the only submission win Jericho can get is over a member of La Resistance.
Yeah.
If you'll notice that the past few months or so, the only time he ever gets the win with the Walls of Jericho is when he fights Conway or Grenier.
And in fact, Grenier did tap out. It was a pretty quick match. Again, it seemed like the second filler match of the show.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, though, it's good that they're actually having matches, because the past couple of weeks they've actually been a little light on the matches, and this week they were pretty heavy on the matches, so I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah, we've gone through, I believe, 4 matches already, and there's still a lot of show left.
Yeah.
Now, after Chris Jericho picked up that win, there's a little spat between Benjamin and Jericho. Shelton is, obviously getting some props from Jericho, saying, he's a great athlete. Jericho says he's busy being a rock star, a movie star, a pop culture icon, and so many other things that Shelton may have to put up with Jericho being late every now and again. And Jericho walks away to some, mixed emotion, though, cheers and boos. And it looks like Shelton's actually getting some cheers in the ring at that point in time. This leads us to Eric Bischoff's funeral for ECW, which is what James was referring to earlier.
All right, this annoyed me on so many levels. Let me cover this one.
Go for it, man.
All right, this annoyed me on every level because Bischoff came out and was going to bury ECW. Vince McMahon comes out and steps in the face of Bischoff and says, "The only company that's really dead around here is WCW. I killed WCW." Well, first of all, ECW's dead. This is a WWE reincarnation, and it's not going to survive. It's only a one-night thing. Maybe they could do something with it. That's something we'll discuss on a later edition of the show. But for this time being, ECW is dead as well. What bothers me more than that, first of all, Vince saying I killed WCW to Bischoff's face made me want to hit Vince. And I love Vince. I respect him at least. But I did not like to hear that because, quite frankly, I think he knows that it hurt his revenue, killing WCW. So, I mean, I know there was some sort of satisfaction of finally killing that one company that actually beat him for a while, but it absolutely has to grate on Bischoff's nerves to have the guy that ultimately used cheap tactics like nudity to win in your face saying, "I killed WCW." Bischoff had to want to slug him. That I can tolerate, though, because at least Vince is successful. Then they bring out Paul Heyman. First of all, Paul, put your hat back on. You look terrible. Second, he stands in the ring, and he looks at Bischoff, and he's pretty much being very condescending to him. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm Bischoff and I'm listening to some idiot being condescending towards me and how great ECW was, I'd say, "Listen, pal, your highest time in ECW, you couldn't beat my C show in ratings. Saturday night got higher ratings than ECW on TNN. Well, there you go. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it."
Now, here's where I have to step in and completely disagree with you, because...
Hey, I had to step in earlier, and I let him go.
Well, see, this is just ridiculous, the stuff that James is saying at this point in time. For some reason, James forgot that we're watching wrestling, which involves angles. Now, in order to make the ECW show receive higher buy rates, it's important that they make it seem like ECW was an important, competition wrestling federation during the Monday Night Wars, which we all know that it wasn't. But, with many angles in wrestling, you need to suspend, common sense and knowledge in order to allow the angle to work. I personally thought this was a great angle. We had, 3 of the biggest wrestling promoters in history out there in the same ring together for the first time in history. I did feel bad for Eric Bischoff to some degree, but to some degree I don't. Eric Bischoff's getting a nice paycheck from Vince McMahon as well as Paul Heyman. So it would behoove them to make the WWE look good. And, Vince can say whatever he wants about anyone because, when the day is done, Vince is the one that has made the WWE into an empire.
Yes. Now, that's why I had less of a problem with Vince getting in Bischoff's face.
Well, here's the thing that I disagree with James about. Number one, anyone who thinks that the WWE won simply because of nudity, well, let's take a look at WCW's Bischoff and Russo.
Oh, there was well, first of all, there was no nudity. But second,
there was no nudity on WWE.
Jackie's topless.
Carnage pay-per-view, a pay-per-view that never aired in the United States and fully loaded.
Fully loaded. All right. What would you call the palm prints on Sable's breasts?
By the way, those are all pay-per-view.
Yeah. So, it's still on a WWE banner. If you're selling youth-size,
pay-per-view.
If you're selling youth-size T-shirts, you don't have nudity on your show. If you're selling,
you have to buy it.
Yeah.
I mean,
with what you're saying then is that HBO shouldn't be allowed to show nudity either, which is...
I'm saying that HBO should not be able to sell youth-size T-shirts that say real sex on them.
Okay, well then, anyway, Paris Hilton shouldn't be able to make a line of clothing. Tommy Hilfiger should go out of business as well.
I actually agree with that because Paris Hilton's a filthy crack whore.
That's true. But the bottom line is, this is James's opinion. This isn't what should or shouldn't be. There's no laws against. But once again, bottom line is, if you're going to go on the moral route, let's look at the WCW when the Bischoff-Russo era was certainly not something that I considered a moral high road. But regardless, the bottom line is...
Well, give me an example of what you found to be an unmoral high road.
Well, let's see. There was a wrestler named after a erectile penis. There was a wrestler that was named after the use of of marijuana.
Both good examples. I didn't care for either one of them. I'll give you that.
There was a dominatrix style wrestler.
Yeah, but she was so watered down, I don't even know it.
There was a dominatrix style wrestler.
Who? Who was the dominatrix style wrestler? Kimona?
Leia Meow.
Kimona Wanalea, yeah. So what? Nobody seemed to know.
I'm just telling you.
Nobody knew.
You can't say, yeah, well, this happened, but.
No, nobody knew what it meant because it was so watered down.
Peanuts, we'd all be having a party. Anyway, let's see, what else happened? Vince Russo used the word shit quite liberally. Let's see, what else happened? There was satanic references with Vampiro.
As opposed to the WWE's crucifying Steve Austin.
Yeah, I'm just comparing here.
Wait, let's go back.
Literally poured urine on Diamond Dallas Page's face.
I don't have a problem with that.
Let's see, what else do we got here? Chuck, you gonna back me up here?
Oh, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think that there's a moral argument here.
I think there is a moral argument here because WCW did not even have TNA, not the company, in 97, 98, and 99. It was 2000 when Russo came in that he brought that element. I will not defend what Russo did, but I will also say this. Anything he did do was far less provocative than having a black man make love to a transsexual.
Well, that's what he did. That was his writing.
I know. All I'm saying is WCW had standards and practices WWE didn't.
Well, the whole point of this discussion...
Let's get off this discussion, though.
The whole point of this discussion is the fact that you were basically not happy with the angle that played out on TV featuring Bischoff.
No. That's me as a mark that was a WCW fan can see the anger that would be going through Bischoff when he's hearing this. The angle is good. And I actually am a fan of the idea of an invasion of the ECW show. But at some point, Bischoff, and maybe if it is on pay-per-view, should get his licks in and say, listen, pal, you couldn't even beat Saturday Night with the training school guys.
Well, if you think Bischoff is going to get his licks in on the ECW pay-per-view, I got some .com stock to sell you. But when I hear the...
Did you not see the segment?
Yeah, but you think he's going to triumph on the ECW pay-per-view?
Yeah, he's going to form a faction to invade.
No, do you think he's going to triumph?
Triumph on it? No, but I think he'll get some mic time.
Yeah, but he's not going to overcome anybody. Bischoff's going to get his ass kicked on that pay-per-view.
He's not going to get it.
I think he is. But the thing is,
maybe Tommy Dreamer could hit him.
When I hear people with WCW marks whining about WWF won because of sex, that's the same to me as when a WWF mark says, yeah, well, WCW won because it perpetrated and supports all that Vince McMahon lawsuit crap from
the day.
It's the same thing.
The day you start selling T-shirts of a guy flipping somebody off that are youth-sized, designed to go to grammar school kids, is the day you've gone too far.
That's worse than FU BAR shirts.
First of all, it was FUNB. He did say that the end part was for Russo and Bischoff, or Bischoff and Russo. But he did not say what the FU stood for. And I remember...
Nobody
comedy line here.
Let me talk. Nobody said what the finger stood for.
There's a universal signal. That's sign language, pal.
What is
That's sign language. Now let me go back. Tony Schiavone. No. There's a funny line here. There's a funny line that Bobby Heenan had when they were trying to decide what FUNB stood for. Tony Schiavone said, "I don't know what it stands for. It stands for First United National Bank." Do you know what Bobby Heenan said? When was the last time somebody told you to go unite yourself?
But I'm just saying, your bird remark is no more legitimate than
yes, it is.
Credible as my FU remark.
First of all, blasphemy to the Bible is not cool. Second of all, flipping somebody off and selling it to kids is not cool. Third of all,
the Bible.
3:16. Third of all,
blasphemy.
It's blasphemy. Third of all, yes, it is. It's mockery of the Bible. Next.
How is it mockery?
Look, you're an atheist. You wouldn't understand. Next.
No, how?
Listen, I don't want to keep on this.
No, how? I mean,
listen, guys.
Go ahead.
Listen to me.
No, you're not explaining.
I'm choosing to abstain from the Bible because I don't really have any opinions on it either way. I agree with the fact that to some degree, we're walking on a slippery slope with this discussion, but B, furthermore, I mean, wrestling is wrestling. I mean, you can't try and say, in my opinion, that, one's worse than the other. I mean, they both did fucked up things. I remember WCW having car crashes with people dying and shit like that as their angle.
They never did that with anybody dying. As a matter of fact, if I remember, Kevin Nash got hit by the Hummer, and he was back the next week, and he had a Band-Aid.
Well, I mean, there are points that would hit closer to your home, James.
But let's get this thing back on topic. What we were discussing was not WWE versus WCW. We all know how that ended. WWE won, regardless if we agree on how they did it. Bottom line is they did it. They're around. I think that they're putting on quality programming now. I don't have much of a problem with what they're doing now. I actually watch it. I tried not to for a while, but I appreciate that they're still around. As far as ECW is the one that brought a lot of that stuff. And I didn't have a problem with ECW when they did it. You know why? They never claimed to be family entertainment and then 3 months later put nudity on the air. But that's my problem. Let's go on to the next.
Can I say one thing that has nothing to do with that topic?
Uh-huh.
When I saw Viscera do what he did to Coach, all I could think of was sodomy.
Sodomy, yes. My sodomy on the air.
I said it's happened.
Lenny Lane and Hulk Hogan are going to do live sodomy on the air. What do you think of that?
I think we saw it with Viscera and Coach.
Yeah, we almost did. That was a little uncomfortable, but that was funny. I'll give it that. See, now I'm not as into it because there's no other alternative. TNA got canceled for world-class darts. So, I mean, there is no competition to WWE.
Yeah, I think this is the end of TNA.
I do too.
Going on to the next match, we saw an ECW Styles Rules match, keeping with the ECW theme here that we've been discussing, with Chris Benoit and Tajiri. What did you guys think of this match? I thought it wasn't a particularly good match. I don't think it was given enough time to properly display a hardcore style. But they worked their asses off. They got their point across.
Wait, didn't this happen last week?
Yeah, but they had it again this week. They actually had it happen.
Well,
with a finish.
I don't. I'm gonna have to go with James on this. If you keep pushing, I mean, I can understand if you push them as a part, but you can't keep pushing Benoit and Tajiri like the figureheads of ECW.
Mm.
Oh, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. They did their time in ECW. Played somewhat of a role, but were obviously not some of the figureheads like Taz and Rob Van Dam and Shane Douglas and others. But, that's who they currently have working under WWE contracts to help promote that show.
And on Raw.
And
right.
That's what they do. And, I can understand the theories behind it. And like I said, it was an okay match. It was
okay. I think they tried to capture the attitude of ECW by having a lot of garbage cans and which, by the way, that works real well for what Payman was saying. ECW wasn't hardcore wrestling. It was mat technicians in the ring when the other guys weren't doing that. Okay, so what do we see? What do we see in the next match? Garbage cans and kendo sticks.
I thought that was such a funny impression because it sounded nothing like him.
Well, to some degree, he's accurate in what he's saying. There was some lucha libre style wrestling in ECW.
Oh yes, I mean, nobody will ever deny that the Malenko and Guerrero matches from ECW was absolutely flawless technical wrestling.
And let's not forget the lesser-known Lance Storm, Jerry Lynn matches, which were absolutely off the charts fantastic.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It'd be good to see Lance get back in the ring. He's going to get in there, right?
He is going to get in there for his last match. He actually recently retired from the WWE to start his own training school.
I just remember that at Anarchy Rules 99 when I saw Storm and Lynn in the opening match, and that was one of the best technical matches I've ever seen.
No doubt. ECW definitely had some technical wrestlers.
Absolutely.
But let's keep this thing moving right along. Then we had Todd Grisham interviewing Kane, where Kane was shaking, moving back and forth, talking about how much pain he suffers, and how he hates pain, and on and on. Obviously, this was a little dramatic, a little bit of a long segment.
Hey, Eric.
But
yeah,
I think Lita leaving Kane made him shake all over.
that needs no follow-up.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I mean, it was an okay interview. It got the point across that Kane is upset. But what bothered me is, why we see Kane so upset. We didn't really see him get any retribution on that show at all.
Well, it's good. I mean, they've been booking show to show. I think once he does finally go after Edge, which will probably be for the next pay-per-view, which I don't know when that'll be. That'll be it.
That's when he'll go after the Edge.
The Edge, yes. Because Maria is such a great backstage interviewer.
Then we had Viscera being interviewed by Maria, which obviously led to
sodomy.
The sodomy, if you will, of Coach. We saw the big man Viscera get a little bit naked to some degree.
So evidently Viscera likes white women and black men.
All I gotta say is we don't see enough of Coach.
Yeah.
Coach is actually a really valuable asset to Raw.
He's a good talker.
Because when he walks out with that ridiculously goofy entrance music with a video that says Players Club featuring the Coach, that just makes me laugh every time I see it. The guy's going to get his ass kicked. And it's just so
You know what's great, though? We talk about the need for managers all the time. He'd be the perfect manager.
He would be a perfect, because like Bobby Heenan, everybody always paid to see him get popped. Everybody loves to see Coach get his ass kicked.
Well, and he's obviously a great talker. I mean, some of the best segments we've seen involved him in The Rock and various others.
There's one, I think if you get the 2002 King of the Ring, and it was before Coach ever turned heel, but there's a section where The Rock makes him do a dance, and Coach just kind of bends over and opens his palms and just makes this really funny face and starts shaking his hands. It's possibly some of the funniest footage I've ever seen. I laughed for about 10 minutes after seeing it. Then The Rock just kicks him down his face, and he has this surprised look on his face, and he goes straight into the camera. And it's just this hilarious segment. So if you ever get a chance to see 2002 King of the Ring, I think that's what it's on. Just check that out, because it's
that's excellent. They always did have some good chemistry. I remember WrestleMania 18. They had an interesting segment where Coach prayed to the giant playa in the sky or something like that.
Yeah.
and Rock said, "What the hell's wrong with you?" or something.
And he told him to go get a haircut and wash his ass. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, those two are great together. Anyway. All right, we're way off topic. How do we get back on here?
Off topic.
Well, obviously, I think we're all going to agree the Viscera segment had its funny moments. It was probably a little too long.
Is it just me, or like Heidenreich, is Viscera getting over with this crazy gimmick?
He seems to be getting slightly over. I would tend to agree with you there.
I like it. I like it, but I can't claim to fully understand it.
It's weird.
I like it, but I can't explain it.
Okay, let's go to the next segment.
Well, actually, we're bringing ourselves up to actually the final match of Raw, which was the Edge Batista match, which I got to jump in here and say was one of the better matches that I've seen in a little while. I was finally pleased to see Batista do a few more moves, add a couple more to his repertoire, i.e. the superplex off the top rope. A lot of the credit does go to Edge in this, as he carried Batista to some degree to a fairly good match. But this, again, really helped Batista because you had a definite heel for the definite face Batista to face. And, it came across well. It was a good match. A little too much interference for my liking, but overall, I give that match definitely a thumbs up and a highlight of the night.
I'd have to agree with you. I don't think it was necessarily the moves that Batista did, but just the way he did them. I think the match, and that was always the thing that people would always say about Shawn Michaels. It wasn't that he really did too much different, but the way he did it was always better than most of the competition. And this is what I saw from these two guys, and I thought both guys gave one hell of an effort. I think that was the first time I really saw flashes of greatness from Batista's being able to work a competent main event style, because he certainly, he certainly really brought his A game that night. And the only part that I didn't, actually 2 parts I didn't like, was, of course, when Ric Flair, 3 parts I didn't like, when Ric Flair came down, cleaned house of 3 of the top athletes in the WWE. Then, when Triple H came down, my heart sank into my stomach. And then, when Flair turned against Batista, turning heel for the 4 billionth time in a row, and nobody cared. So, yeah.
I will say that this match, I thought, was a fantastic match. There was 100% heel against 100% face. The crowd knew who to cheer for. It was a fantastic match. Batista got the win. It didn't really kill Edge too badly. And
I mean, it was great. We had Edge in the ring, waiting for Batista to enter. Edge had just stepped in the ring, and the crowd was already cheering for Batista.
Oh yeah, Batista was over. He was over like Rover.
He was over as hell.
Yes. And that's what you got to do. You can't put him in. You can't put Batista in with guys like Christian or say Carlito, or guys who the crowd is, they're upper mid-card heels that the crowd is getting very into. You got to put them up with established guys that the crowd is passionately hating. And right now, they're hating Edge Edge is more over than Triple H is.
I'll tell you what, I did notice when Triple H came out that the crowd was not quite as passionate as they were for Edge. Not even close.
Well, you gotta understand this. While I think all of us enjoyed a little break from Triple H, when he did finally come back, this is the first time we'd really see Batista get it handed to him. And
yes.
He got it handed to him in a big way. I mean, he was busted open. He was getting slapped. And this feud, we've all agreed, has been kind of stagnant. While I would have liked to have seen it end, if it's going to continue, which it appears it is, I think this was the best way to go.
It's going to have to be really violent.
Well, obviously they're going to continue with the Hell in a Cell tradition of bad blood, but, as far as heels and faces goes, a lot of people will say, this guy's more over than that guy. Well, it works on the heel level, too. If a guy's getting booed more passionately than the other guy, he deserves to be pushed higher up the card.
Well, and that's why I finally come to the realization that this Lita Edge, heel turn is actually going to end up being beneficial for everyone involved.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel badly for Matt Hardy.
Absolutely. I think it's the only way you can go. It's the only way you can go. Well, that about does it for our Monday Night Raw recap. Once again, we remind you to tune in on May 31st as you have an opportunity to win tickets to go see Monday Night Raw here in Phoenix, Arizona at the America West Arena.
Say, we're developing a good relationship with WWE. We actually recently had an opportunity to interview Al Snow from the WWE. You may know him better from the Tough Enough series. He was also an ECW favorite. He had a lot of good matches. A good friend of Mick Foley. We had a chance to sit down with him and his manager and talk about what Al's been up to recently. We discussed such topic as the ECW upcoming pay-per-view, what part Al Snow will play in it. We talked a little bit about Walmart, oddly enough, which was actually a great segment.
Which is probably my favorite part of it, because I actually threw in a follow-up question.
And we also discussed Al's upcoming movie role. His manager actually created a movie about art buyers.
Yes.
In which Al Snow plays a deranged art buyer.
With the head.
I just want to say one thing about Al Snow real quick. I have never seen anything like I saw at Living Dangerously. I believe it was 98, I think, when all the people had those heads, just throwing them in the ring. That was insane.
Yeah, that was something to see.
That was something to see. I think if WWE would have handed out those styrofoam heads at the same level, he would have become like a phenomenon.
Yeah,
and people
I think they did drop the ball with him.
People are just wondering exactly what that was about. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll tell you what, it got over. It got over big.
Yeah.
So definitely make sure you keep it locked right here. The interactive interview coming up next with Al Snow.